The Winnipeg Jets have a golden opportunity to slay some dragons and win a Stanley Cup this year. We're going to break that down, as well as multiple other injury updates that will have serious implications on the lineup and the team's success moving forward into the postseason. We're going to break all of that down in this episode of Hat-Trick HQ and Winnipeg Jets Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 72% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the NHL or the Winnipeg Jets, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, KC, the Jets have a golden opportunity this season. I mean, one of the best opportunities they've had since the team moved to Winnipeg to win a Stanley Cup, I believe, at least this year. And we're going to break down how they could possibly do that and their road to the Stanley Cup, as well as some injury updates that I think are really interesting, in the way that the team is playing could actually have an impact on their success in the playoffs. But this is from Mike McIntyre. We're going to start with this. Imagine a playoff scenario for the Winnipeg Jets where the quest for Lord Stanley's Cup is filled with ghosts from the past. And round one, the playoff race, we don't know who they're going to play in round one at this point. I mean, the playoff race, it looks like they're going to finish first, of course, the Winnipeg Jets. But, the wild card race in both conferences this year has been something that I haven't seen in a long time. It's been very exciting. And, there's a lot of teams that are fighting to get in, a lot of teams that I feel like are going to fall into the playoffs by accident after not doing themselves any favors. But in round one, it could be St. Louis, who they lost to in 2019. It could be Colorado. They lost to last year, of course, and there's a lot of question marks around Connor Hellebuyck and his playoff performance as well. Vegas lost to them in 2018 and 2023. And, of course, the final boss, looking like The Rock from WWE, could be Paul Morrissey and the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final. What do you make of this, KC? And do you think this is the best case scenario? Do you think that you have to go through teams that you've lost to before?
I think if there's a way for the Jets to finally fight the demons and get out of round one, this is the way to do it. It kind of looks like it's written in the script at this point that this is the way it's going to go. I think them getting to the finals and battling against Paul Maurice would be cinema. It would be so good to see them kind of fight against their old guy and try to best him and beat him and win the Stanley Cup. But, it's not going to be an easy road. As you see here, the St. Louis Blues, they're always a team that can shock people. I mean, we've seen it back when they went on that big run when they won the Stanley Cup. Do I think their team is as strong as it was back then? It's not the same, but it would be a great series nonetheless. And if this is the route that the Winnipeg Jets have to take to win the Stanley Cup, this is the best way to do it for the fans, because as you can see, all these teams have bested the Jets in the past. So what better than fighting your demons, going to battle, beating the teams that have done you dirty in the past to get to the Stanley Cup final, and whatever happens there happens. But for the Winnipeg Jets, Darius, it's been tough for them to get out of the first round, second round over these last few years. So I think that's going to be their battle. I don't think we need to worry about the teams at this point, whoever they're facing. The guys who've been there for a while, like Scheifele, Hellebuyck, they're all going to have that in the back of their mind, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, that we need to get out of this first round. And I think if they do get out of the first round, or when they do get out of the first round, they will start to be on a roll and they'll be feeling themselves. And there's not going to be a team that's going to beat them in the playoffs if they get out of that first round, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they just got to get through that first round hump, and then, the mental block that's there might be removed. Having not made a conference final since 2018, they obviously want to get back there, and not just there, but the Stanley Cup final this year. And I think that they definitely can do that. It's going to be interesting. And again, this is just, if the playoffs started today type of thing against St. Louis. It could be Calgary, right, which I think would be very interesting too. It could be Vancouver, which, they lost to Vancouver last night. We're going to get to that in a second as well. But, a couple things that I've noticed with the Jets so far this season, and we know, to get into some injury updates now, we know that Neil Pionk is now at this point week to week. He should return before the end of the regular season, but he is out of the lineup with a significant, I guess, at least we think it's significant, lower body injury, because he's not day to day. He's going to be out for a couple weeks, right? And Scott Arniel obviously went on to announce that he is week to week, and Luke Schenn has moved up into his spot to play with Dylan Samberg, which I think is great. And that's exactly why you went out at the deadline, to get a guy for Luke Schenn, right? Like, for moments like this when you do have injuries, because they're going to happen in the playoffs, especially if you go on a long playoff run. So with that being said, I've noticed, Casey, this year that when the Jets are missing one of Samberg or obviously Neil Pionk on the right side, they haven't been playing well. And again, last night, the first game, without Pionk, or one of the first games without Neil Pionk, they lose 6-2. Very uncharacteristic loss to the Vancouver Canucks. And if you can remember earlier this season, Dylan Sandberg was out with a broken leg, and in his absence, they lost quite a few games too after a start where they were absolutely on fire to start the year. So very uncharacteristic from them. What are you seeing from this too? We have some stats we're going to get into, some advanced analytics, but I don't know. I don't think I'm just making this up in my head. I feel like we're starting to see a bit of a pattern here that maybe these guys in that pairing are, keeping things together here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these guys have been the glue of the back end for the Winnipeg Jets this season. Neil Pionk obviously doing it in a different way than Dylan Sandberg. Pionk has really been a great offensive guy. I would say two-way guy on the back end for this Jets team, but he has been leaning a little bit more offensive this year, which I love to see from Pionk. He has a big shot from the blue line. He has 37 points in 66 games, has been on absolute fire, but he can also get it done defensively as well. I mean, he has 109 hits. He's been laying the body a lot more this year, and 97 shots, as you see on your screen. He is not afraid to let that thing go from the point this year, and we've seen it convert into offensive chances for this team, whether it's tips in front, whether it's rebounds in front. Pionk shooting from the back end. He can also snipe him top corner as well. We've seen that from him this season. So losing a guy like that now week to week is going to hamper or damper your team, because you don't have a guy back there that can let it rip and play into your system as he has been doing all season and has been leading to their success. And we've seen that last night with him not being in the lineup, them, like you said, having a very uncharacteristic loss, and to a team, to the Vancouver Canucks, who have been struggling lately, and they needed a bounce back win. That's what they got last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you can see on your screen right now too, to move away from Neil Pionk, who again, I think those are great points, and he's been fantastic this year, and he's blocking shots, he's playing physical. He's one of the last guys in the NHL that really throw hip checks as well, right? Like that kind of comes out of nowhere sometimes. So love to see that from him. But Dylan Sandberg too, and he's back into the lineup and in a big way. Scored a big overtime winner the other night too, and he's been playing fantastic. He's due a big raise. We covered that in another video. But as you can see here, and this is from an article from Murat Atesh as well, and if you follow the chart, when he was out of the lineup, PK's not doing so well, but when he comes back into the lineup, it starts to do a little bit better, right? So I think that these two guys, when not only playing together, but just in the lineup in general, add so much more to this team. Pionk obviously doesn't play, Josh Morrissey's up there with the first power play unit, right? But Neil Pionk adds something 5-on-5. Both of these guys add something 5-on-5 that they desperately miss when one of them, if not both of them, are out of the lineup. And again, that's kind of why you go out and acquire a guy like Luke Schenn to kind of shore up that position for now, but it's just not the same. I don't think this is the same team without those guys in the lineup. And, uncharacteristic loss to the Vancouver Canucks, like we mentioned. And one last thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up here, and I want your thoughts on this too, KC, is, they went out and made some moves at the deadline. Nothing too flashy. You get Brandon Tanev there for your fourth line, who's come in and done a good job. And as you can see here, that fourth line's been pretty good, 5-on-5, at least in terms of advanced analytics. And this is just in the last 5 games. So a small sample size, yes, but, since the trade deadline has been looking pretty good. And then obviously Luke Schenn back there on the blue line steps into a new role right now because of an injury. I feel like if the Jets go on a long playoff run, that's going to be a reoccurrence throughout the lineup. So what are you seeing from some of the new guys? And I think that it's going to pay off. They weren't the biggest moves, but I think these moves are going to pay off, especially if they get to round 2, round 3 in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before the deadline, we were talking about some big name players coming to the Winnipeg Jets, and then when we seen the deadline, I seen a lot of reaction from fans. We're kind of like, hey, we didn't get that guy that we wanted. We didn't, get that big name. But I do like the ads that they made. I think they didn't need to go out and get a big name guy who's got a big contract. They just needed a couple of guys here that are going to fill the roles that they need. And that's what they're getting with Tanev. I think Tanev is a great third line guy. He can generate offense down in that bottom 6, but he's also a physical guy, a great leader, a great locker room guy that if this team's down, I can see Brandon Tanev trying to get the boys fired up on the bench. I can see him trying to get the boys fired up in between the intermissions. And that plays a big factor into a team. When you have a guy there that's, coming in saying, we need one here, like, let's get going. Like, you need guys like that on your team to be successful, and that's what you're getting with Tanev. And it's the same what you're getting with Schenn, too. He's a great locker room guy. He's also a great guy to have on your team because he's not afraid to put his body on the line to get in from the pucks. That's what his game is. And I think it's two great additions that they did made, and we're seeing the instant impact that they are making with, even like you said, Schenn moving up a pairing in the absence of Neil Pionk. I think this guy is a tremendous defenseman, one that is kind of underappreciated in this league because he doesn't put up big stats, but when you need a block shot, when you need someone to get laid out, he's going to be there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people, like to look at goals and points and those totals, right? But what guys like Luke Schenn bring to the lineup, you can't find it everywhere, right? And everyone's coming up from junior hockey now learning to shoot the puck. And not that Luke Schenn can't shoot the puck, but you know what I mean? Like, you need that physical edge and that defensive defenseman sometimes on your team. So I think he's going to add that. And Brandon Tanev, like you said, he's already doing exactly that. He's pulling guys into the fight. So love that for him. And I think Jets fans are going to become big fans of his very quickly. But we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously a golden opportunity ahead of them to try and win a Stanley Cup this year. And obviously let us know what you think about that pairing of Pionk and Sandberg. When they play together, I feel like they're the glue of this team. Like, they're holding things together. They make such a big difference. And when even one of them is out, it's like things kind of go off the rails a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Jets weather that storm. And obviously, when he comes back heading into the playoffs, it should be pretty exciting. But we want to hear what you have to say. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on around the NHL.